Mock Talk with Paul Bruno, joining us here from RotoWire. Great to see you again, Paul. And 3 series evened up, 1 game each. Of course, Colorado, a game 2 win in overtime, took a 2-0 series lead. That was exciting. Cale Makar, the hero there. Your biggest takeaway from the games last night?
Well, there were a couple of them. You know what? Through the first 4 nights of the playoffs, we've seen 4 series tied at 1 game apiece. Actually, 6 games tied at 1 game apiece, which is a testament to the quality of and narrow spread between top and bottom. But the biggest takeaway for me last night was that the Dallas club was able to steal a game from Calgary right in Cowtown. 2-0 shutout win, that low-scoring affair, typical of the DNA of both clubs, but surprising that Dallas was able to pull this off. And how about Nashville holding the Avs to 1 goal in regulation with a third-string goalie on their way to a narrow 2-1 overtime loss? That was a bit of a surprise, too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, obviously. I mean, close. You can't beat the Stanley Cup playoffs, Paul, is what it comes down to. Tightly contested games. Some of them go all night long. It's an absolute blast. Tonight, we want to look at the DFS side of things first. We'll get to the DK Sportsbook, obviously. Top price forward, wing, or center? You know, who's putting up the most fantasy points tonight just to start things off, and then we'll keep going from there.
You know what? The Oilers are on a 7-game playoff losing streak dating back a couple of seasons. You have to think that McDavid is going to go off one of these nights like he's done so many times all season long. But even if you're a little wary of spending up to his price tag, you can even save $1,000 and get his longtime running mate Draisaitl for $1,000 less. If you believe the Oilers are going to roll, he's going to be involved in the scoring, and we know that goal scoring pays off much more than passing and setting up goals and with assists on the DK ledger. So Draisaitl could be an even better pick here. And if you're looking elsewhere, I think the Hurricanes have roasted the Bruins in all 5 games they've played this season. The Bees just can't seem to contain the Carolina offense, and that begins with Sebastian Aho, their top line center, and yet he's priced at only $6,300. That smells to me like a bargain tonight.
Goalie change for Boston tonight, Jeremy Swayman. We'll see if that makes any sort of difference. But over the course of the year, considering the Bees have not led in any of the 5 matchups with the Hurricanes, probably not. We'll find out. You mentioned Frank Petrano last night, by the way, and he went for like 30 fantasy points. So pay attention to what Paul has to say here during this segment. Could lead you to some DFS goodness. We've covered the forwards. Let's go to the defensemen. Who stand out?
Look, at the Leafs power play is only 1 for 9, and that goal was scored with a 2-man advantage. This is a top power play in the league, and it's run by Morgan Riley. He's only costing $5,400 tonight. I think it's a key that this group shows up, and if it does, Morgan Riley be a factor. That's a nice price tag to get there. I also like Justin Falk of the Blues, who comes in with 8 points in his last 10 games played, and he's ramped it up offensively in the entire second half of the season, averaging 3 shots on goal per game in that stretch. He'll be featured on their power play unit and costing only $4,600. So I'm looking at a couple of power play quarterbacks here that come in a little cheaper than I expected.
If you're trying to identify some good value tonight, you know, it's normally when we're talking about the highest projected scorers, you know, obviously you mentioned Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, guys that are expected to really explode. You don't tend to see guys that are in that 5K range mixed in among the elite, which sets up, again, obviously a great value opportunity. Anze Kopitar is projected for right around 16 points tonight. He's a top line guy, top power play guy. Is he the one that you would identify, or is there somebody else?
Well, I'm a little worried about Los Angeles in this one. I think Edmonton is overdue for a big night, like I'm implying. So I'm going to go elsewhere and look at 3 other guys who might be in better circumstances. St. Louis, for instance, they're at home, and one of their snipers, Jordan Kyrou, has been on a long roll, and I expect that tear to continue. He's got 11 points in his last 10 games played, yet somehow still priced at only $4,600, despite the fact that he's also featured on their number 1 power play. And I mentioned the Leafs earlier. Their second line has been really quiet for the first 2 games of the series, but their left winger on that second line, Ilya Mikheyev, has been playing maybe the best of the 3 guys in that unit, and also on the special teams. He's been on power play and shorthanded situations. You can't sleep on the fact the Leafs are a threat even when they're shorthanded. They got a goal in each game so far. I look for him to continue his long run of consistent scoring tonight, costing only $4,200. And then finally, if the Bees are going to make their mark in this series against Carolina, they need to be competitive, and that begins with their first line. And look at Jake DeBrusk alongside Marchand and Bergeron there. A primo spot for him. He's been on a nice run, and he gets that thumb assignment while carrying only a $4,100 price tag.
You know, part of the beauty of the playoffs is we don't have that, day long or even, wait through the morning skate. Who's going to be the goalie tonight? For the most part, we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be in net. So do you have a favorite among tonight's games?
I do have one favorite, but it's a couple of guys to consider. We don't know who the goalie is going to be for St. Louis tonight. So Billy Husso and Jordan Binnington are both priced at $7,600. That's extremely low, Adam, for a goaltender who was expected to win tonight. I expect St. Louis to come out with the victory. So I encourage listeners to circle back to RotoWire starting goalie grid. How about that for a promo?
Like that. Good plug.
Yeah, and I say go to RotoWire later today on the goalie grid. My buddy AJ Scholz working hard on that all day long. Get the right guy in your lineup, and you could receive for a pretty cheap win.
All right, slate approved pick for this segment here, Pauls. We're looking at it on the DraftKings Sportsbook side of things. You have a favorite NHL bet. Could be anything available to you.
Yeah, I've got a couple here. I look for Florida to assert themselves in Washington against the Caps. Tonight, they're a team without their top physical guy, Tom Wilson. That's a big loss for them. And part of their identity is lost with his inability to play tonight. The Panthers will have every opportunity to lean on their all-out attack without fear of him being roaming around. And that'll put even more pressure on the home side tonight. So I'd say take the Panthers on the puck line, -1.5 for a +130 payoff. And the only game that I note that I see there with a total goals of 5.5, which is very low in this high-scoring season of hockey that we're seeing. It features Carolina and Boston, and Carolina has met that mark on their own in the first two games with 5 tallies in each of those contests, and they rolled the Bruins 3 times in the regular season with even a higher average. So I expect the Bees' offense to be as good as they can tonight, behind that top line, and they're facing Carolina's third-string goalie Pyotr Kochetkov in the nets tonight. So an added incentive to see more goals. I might even go to the alternate prop here, over 6.5 or better payoff.